Hello, I'm Lorette Ahrens. As I was preparing to share a little bit about my life with you today, I remembered something I had learned a long time ago about the fact that we live our lives three times. First of all, we live it in the future as we're planning to do what we're going to do next, and maybe our hopes and dreams and our vision that we plan on living in a certain type of house, or want a certain type of car or clothes or friends or family. We live that first in the future, and then we live in the present as we're going through our life and trying to create the future. And then we also live in the past as we go back and reflect the lessons that we've learned through that. Now, about a year and a half ago, I met Elise, and Elise Archer was just a ray of sunshine from the second that I met her. And I realized then, after listening to her speak and kind of understanding a little bit what she can do and what she's accomplished in her life, that my life was about to transform. Now, I am a neophyte. I have to tell you that as I was reflecting upon my life, I continued to look back. Where did I hear this before? What I've been learning from Elise, where did I hear it before? And so this story is going to be a journey about how I lived my life from the very beginning, where I initially learned some of the things that she's teaching, and yet she has such a wonderful way of delivering it in today's terms and helping us as coaches, as future coaches, to be able to help other people as well. So I want to express my gratitude to Elise right now, of course. I won't say that I was born as a klutz or accident prone, because that would maybe be putting the wrong information into the universe. But I will say that the first time I broke my arm was when I was 3 years old, playing King of Bunker Hill with my cousins. And after that, I split open my lip when I was doing cartwheels in my parents' office. I also cracked open my head 3 times. I broke my arm 2 more times, once when I was 6 and once when I was 8. I set the mountain behind our house on fire. I totaled my sister's fiance's car, and I dislocated my shoulder in the middle of a multi-state dance competition when I was a senior in high school. I was a problem child. When my parents had the chance to provide a life insurance policy to one of their children, one of their 11 children, they chose me. So wait, it does get better. As an adult, I also crashed my bike in Canada, leaving a hole about the size of a golf ball on my thigh. I blew out my knee. I broke both wrists in a ski accident in Vail, Colorado. I survived 3 Category 5 hurricanes. Near the end, I rear-ended just this past Christmas. I rear-ended somebody and totaled their car, which I feel terrible about. And then between accidents of my life, I actually married 3 times, twice to the same guy, and had 5 children. Now, none of those children were accidents. So most would say that my life was a disaster, or they might say that I'm just lucky to be alive. So I did grow up near a family with 7 boys. And these were the type of boys that were bullies. They literally would pull the legs off of frogs, or they would decide to, off of spiders, or they would blow up frogs. And they were not nice. In fact, my sister and I were abused by them on a number of occasions in a number of ways, unspeakable ways. And it was horrible because when I was growing up in that situation, I realized that I wanted to get out of it. And I grasped onto anything that was positive. My parents were very entrepreneurial. In fact, I remember back in the day, I was 6 or 7 years old, they would invite people over to their home, and they would say, okay, well, we're gonna have a get together. We would tidy up the house, and sometimes a bunch of people would show up, and sometimes nobody would show up. And I was a little embarrassed for them at the time, because I was thinking, I know they really wanted people to show up and they didn't come. And I thought it's kind of like inviting people to your birthday party and they don't show up, right? But then they were undaunted. They knew this principle of the law of the harvest. They knew if they continued to sow seeds, they would eventually create the plants that would grow, and they would be able to harvest what they wanted to harvest. So that was key number 1, a universal law of harvest. Back in the day, business that they were starting was called Amway. Everybody knows that. And they did become quite successful at that, had thousands of people in their team and in their group. They segued into other ventures like real estate and other different ventures as well as a result. But because of that, they had an office, and of all their children, I was the one with the most business mind, and they decided that I was going to be the office manager. So along with scooping ice cream on Baskin Robbins during the week, working at Snowbird at ski resort as a maid on the weekends, and a lot of other things like doing drill team and also a waitress at Pizza Oven. I was a very busy teenager. And remember one time though that was life-changing. My father took me to a positive mental attitude, a PMA. Was more like a conference. There were thousands of people, and this was held in a huge arena in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I have to say that I was so impressed to be able to hear Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, Robert Schuller, all these great speakers. And it was, among others, this was an all-day event. And I kept saying to myself, though, why are there not more women on the stage? I mean, that's certainly something I would love to do. So that I put that on my to-do and my goal list, that eventually, at some point in my life, I wanted to be a platform speaker. So I'm going to, in the context of making it easier to remember, I'm going to go ahead and spell out the word power. So power is what we're going to talk about, these 5 concepts that I've been able to live through and kind of integrate into my life. The P stands for positivity and potential. Now, we've been taught by Elise and others, we've heard it through our lives, to have positive affirmations. How much have we done that to our own children? My parents did that. I remember doing cartwheels in the living room, and my dad would run through and he would say, "Hey, Lorette, you're a winner." My mom would echo from the kitchen, "Lorette, you're a leader." They were just so encouraging all the time and so very supportive. And truly there was very little animosity in our home. We were taught to never say "I hate you" or never say "you're stupid." Apologies and forgiveness and love, that was our mantra in our home. So I feel very blessed to have grown up in a home like that. Unfortunately, my dad died way too young, so he's already been gone for 30 years. My mom told me of a story, and this stuck with me all these years. It was a story about a guy that during the Great Depression, he really needed a job. His family was starving. And so he decided to get into the line. There was about 200 people in front of him. And he did something unique. He wrote a note and he sent it up to the front. He said, "Don't give that job to anyone else until you speak with me." Now that stuck with me, and I actually used that same tactic to land a job at age 22 with DoubleTree Hotels. And 18 months later, I was the Employee of the Year. And I have to say that because I had the confidence to do that because of what my mother taught me to do. The O in power is opportunity. Opportunity is everywhere. Now, I did get married at age 18, mostly to escape to California with this young man who looked like he had a lot of promise. I had grown up, second mom to my brothers and sisters and changed a lot of diapers. A lot of those probably went down the toilet because they were the cloth kind, not the paper kind. And I have to say that that marriage, it was terms for me to go ahead and escape. We ended up living overseas because he was with the State Department. We were in Mexico, Israel, and also Abu Dhabi. And I had a couple of kids born in those countries as well. So after 14 years, though, the marriage failed, and leaving me with $100,000 in debt. And I chose not to seek child support simply because I knew he didn't have any ability to pay that or pay back the debt. So I took on the $100,000 of debt, which in today's terms would be at $250,000. So you can imagine how daunting that was. I was terrified. How am I going to raise these 5 children and then have a job and do what I need to do to teach them in the way that they need to be taught? Well, I had a friend that shared with me. It was a help wanted, and it was for an ABC news channel that was looking for a business reporter. And I said, I can do that. And I've never done anything like that in my life. But I used that same tactic my mom shared with me. I called them and I said, don't give that job to anyone else until you speak with me. And I went and interviewed and I landed the job. And over the next 4 years, I was able to pay off the full $100,000, well, really $250,000 if you're thinking of it in today's terms, of debt. I was able to pay that off and then also at the same time raise my children as well. Soon after that, I did meet my second husband, but we dated for a while, and in the meantime, I had met a coach, my first success coach. His name was Brian. And I remember as I was speaking to him with passion about how I wanted to be a platform speaker, I wanted to be a coach, I wanted to help people, he said to me, be careful what you wish for because you'll probably get it. In addition to that, he said, Lorette, you need to get yourself a little bit famous. So I was like, how can I do that? And he also says, and you need to learn to sell with influence. And I have to say I was a little bit intimidated by that last one because I was the person that would look at a telephone. If I had to make a phone call, a sales call, I would look at the phone for a half an hour and be scared to death to pick it up. I remember one time calling my dad because I knew he was good at this stuff, and I said, Dad, I've got to make these phone calls, and I have no idea, what to say. I'm scared to death. And my dad very calmly said to me, Lorette, you've been looking at that phone for 30 minutes and nothing has happened. And yet if you were to pick up that phone and call somebody, maybe something will happen. So if you don't call, you're going to be in the exact same position that you are right now. But if you do call, you might make something happen. So I've remembered that all my life. And if I've ever had call reluctance, then I hear my dad's words speaking to me. And words are things. I have to say that whether it's written or whether you're saying it or you're listening to it, words are things, and words help things happen. Even in the Bible, it reminds us in Genesis that the Word is God and God is the Word, and God said, let there be light, and it happened. We have the power to create. And the law of attraction is exactly something that happened to me at one of these events that I went to with my success coach, a Tony Robbins event. A stranger came up to me and said, hey, Lorette, have you ever done a pageant before? You kind of look like that pageant type of girl. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, I've never done a pageant. I'm just an old married woman with 5 kids, and I don't know even who to contact or anything. And about an hour later, I was sitting at the pool. This was in Tampa, Florida, and there was a gentleman there. And I said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "I'm watching my children in their pageants." And I thought, that's odd. That's in two times in the same day I've learned about pageants. Odd. And then about an hour later, I was leaving towards the airport, and once I got to the airport, there was a woman waiting to get on the plane, and she had a Mrs. Virginia t-shirt on with a crown. And I walked over to her and I said, what is that? And she says, well, I was Mrs. Virginia, and there's these Mrs. pageants. And I thought, no, I can't even believe that this has happened 3 times in one day. So I knew that my life again was just about to change. She ended up coaching me and telling me who to call to get involved there. After 5 tries of 4 different, 4 tries, 4 different pageants, I ended up winning Mrs. Virginia, went on to win the national pageant, Mrs. United States. And then a few years later, I actually won the Mrs. America pageant as well. So I was the first person in history to do both of those. And it wasn't without a lot of coaching, though. It didn't happen by accident. There was a lot of visualization that happened before that. I imagined myself on stage. I imagined myself being crowned. I imagined myself with answering the final question. All of these things happened because I was visualizing, and the law of attraction happened because when that stranger told me, the one thing that he told me was, hey, you look like a pageant gal. That changed my life, and he doesn't even know to this day that did change my life. So that was, I kind of checked off that of the list that Brian said, I needed to get a little bit famous, and it kind of was a little bit that way, simply because every time I was asked to go on an appearance, they would fly me out, and I got to go first class. There was a lot of really great things that went along with that. And about a few years later, as I was applying for a credit card, for a joke, I put PhD on the end of my name, and I thought, oh, that's never going to go anywhere. But every time I saw that statement, I read PhD. And I didn't even have my bachelor's degree. Remember, I got married at 18. I kind of eked out some college. I had one year before I got married, but then I did correspondence, and it's the old school way, right? Well, in 2017, my daughter called me and she said, "Mom, I'm getting my degree in psychology. I know you've been working on that. How about we graduate together?" So that very thing happened in 2019. We graduated together, both wearing our caps and gowns, and it was the most rewarding experience. She was my youngest daughter, and it took me more than 30 years to get my bachelor's degree. But I decided then and there to go ahead and register for my master's degree. I went to Liberty University for that. Then COVID hit. Boy, that was a great time to get some online learning done. And so I finished my master's degree in communications, and then went on to secure a position for the PhD program, which wasn't easy as well. But 6 years later, here I am standing in front of you as Dr. Ahrens. The PhD that I wrote on that little piece of paper 24 years ago. So the E in POWER is to elevate through education, and that's exactly what we were just talking about. And the other way that I've been able to do that, or wanted to do that, is to certify in certain things that I'm interested in. I've always been interested in psychology, which goes along with coaching, and Elise has put together just an amazing program. I've loved going through it. I really am looking forward to the time when I feel ready. I mean, I really do feel ready now to help people. I'm not perfect at it. Like I said, I'm still a neophyte. But still, I know that the information is very valuable. It's helping me in my own life, and I'm looking forward to helping others as well. The last out of the POWER, which the first, of course, was positivity. O is opportunity, W is words, E is education, and the R is rinse and repeat. So I have to say that this rinse and repeat is so important to me. I've had a lot of trauma in my own marriage. In fact, I married the guy twice. But I have to say that when I was going through some of the concepts with Elise, and she talked about how there's the wounded masculinity and then there's divine masculinity, he is totally moving into the divine masculinity, and that has helped both of us. And I hope that I can be instrumental in helping him to do that throughout his life. Another huge win that I feel I've had is we've blended our families, Dave and I, and we have 7 children. They're all married. They're all happily married. I couldn't have said that 4 years ago, because one of our daughters, a couple of them were kind of on the rocks a few years ago, but one daughter in particular was about ready to divorce her husband. And I asked permission to go ahead and coach each of them. And individually and then also together, they decided to put everything back together. They also decided to have a baby. She's 44. She finally had her second child, and I got a call from her just recently saying, "Mom, I can't even imagine living my life without my husband. We're happier than ever," and I attribute that 100% to you. And I thought, that's really insane, because my husband kept saying, just please stay out of it, stay out of it, stay out of it. But with gentle love and forgiveness, they were able to continue on, and now they are happier than ever. So for me, that is the most triumphant. As far as the business goes, my husband and I, 20 years ago, did start a business for $5,000 seed money. And that in the financial services industry, and that has grown to a $600 million company. And we have been blessed in terms of, now we have 2 mortgage-free homes, one in Utah and one here in Florida. And it's wonderful to see how things can happen I was able to do an interview on CNBC recently, and there's just so many things that happen and that transpire as a result of visualizing and understanding our power. So I would encourage each of you, if I can do this, the klutz who actually ended up winning the Mrs. America pageant, I mean, go figure, right? If I can do this, you can do this. I know that I was meant to lead, I was meant to inspire, I was meant to uplift, and I sincerely feel and believe that you were meant to do the same.